Hello again. We're now at the final week of our commentary, overview, wrap-up, summary of publishing industries. If you were with us last week or the week before, you met Ken Hurst, who was on my immediate left, and Ken is a formerly president of Prentice Hall International. The lady on his left is Irma Heldman, who has been with a number of publishers and is now publisher. She's an author, published author, and a publisher in her own right. And Jerry Ozer worked for large publishing companies, New York Times, Arno, Pittman, and is also a publisher in his own right. Jerry, you've made the transition. You've gone from large publishing, which Ken spent his life in, to very small publishing, where you in effect struck out on your own. Not struck out on your own, but
struck out on my own.
Not in the baseball term.
Right.
Not in the baseball vernacular. How does one survive as an entrepreneur in the publishing industry? What does one do as an entrepreneur in the publishing industry?
In view of the fact that my business experience has been confined solely to publishing,
And publishing what, Jerry?
Well, I'll get to that in a moment. I'll extrapolate from publishing. I think the principles of survival as an entrepreneur in publishing are the principles that one would apply to any business. Watch your costs, watch your overheads, don't guess wrong too many times. Follow sound business principles. In other words, I think any would-be entrepreneur who reads one of those manuals on how to be in your own business would find that those principles apply to publishing as well as to widgets.
You confine your publishing to...
Okay, now that's I think, for a publisher, one of the guides, for a small publisher, that is one of the guides to survival. You have to ask yourself, what do you want to be? Now, I think if a Jerry Ozer tries to be a miniature Prentice Hall or a miniature McGraw-Hill, he will not make it. I think you've got to specialize. You've got to play to your areas of strength, both editorially and marketing, and develop, if you haven't already developed expertise in those fields, develop expertise in certain fields, develop visibility, if you will, in those fields, and apply sound business practices. Let me give you an example. When I started, okay, I approached my brother, who is also my attorney, and I said, okay, I want to be incorporated, and what should I do? And he, very wisely, I thought, said, you know, there are lots of people who start out in business, and they get fancy offices, and very elegant furniture, and all kinds of elegant stationery, and then they discover they don't have any money left. So keep it lean, is what I...
Use your capital in the right area.
That's right.
Irma, you've made a transition from the large publishing industries, Holt Rinehart and Winston and Playboy Books, a number of others. Okay, and now you're striking out on your own as a publisher. Have you targeted your market? Have you targeted the type of book you're going to publish?
Absolutely.
The kind of author that you'll work with?
I couldn't agree with Jerry more, as a matter of fact. I mean, specialize and know your specialty. That's the first thing. Do not be too broad. Be terribly lean. It seems to me built in, and only in the short time that I've been doing it, I found myself being terribly lean because it's me, and so I disapprove of any extra expenses.
Where is your targeting, Irma?
Well, at the moment what I'm doing is I'm putting together an imprint. Okay, which is a mystery suspense imprint, because I was a...
Imprint means?
Imprint means that I will then have a publisher who will carry my imprint, whether it's the Irma Heldman imprint or some other name to it.
Is imprint also a list of titles?
Well, that's what it means. It's going to be my imprint within the house. I will have the apparatus of the house, of the publishing house, which is all the marketing, production, etc., but it'll be mine.
We have the example of the Helen and Kurt Wolf book published by Harcourt Brace.
That's right, or Joan Kahn, or Summit, or Dick Marek, or any number of combinations of people who in effect are with big publishers, but they are their own publisher. And in order for them to really make it, they are the ones doing the publishing work.
I'm going to come back to that point in a minute, Irma, but Ken, from the viewpoint of Prentice Hall, with a history that goes back to World War I with Mr. Ettinger, I believe, your targeting, your marketing, your method or modus operandi is well defined at this point and far less flexible than Irma or Jerry, who are innovating as fairly new entrepreneurs. Do you share any of the things that they've said, or do you see the role of the large publicly owned public stock corporation quite differently?
Well, Phil, it is quite different, but it wasn't always that way. The McGraw-Hills, the Prentice Halls weren't born large corporate structures. They started off as the Jerrys and the Irmas, and they gradually added on and added on. But the thing that makes the publishing business so fascinating, really fascinating, is that it combines the business world, all the business marketing techniques, plus the arts, the cultures. We are part of the culture scene. Now, what makes a publisher successful, in my opinion, is to work backward from the marketplace. If you're in educational publishing, you have to get out and the colleges, universities, the conferences, find out what are the trends in education, what are they going to be in 5 or 10 years' time, and start lining up your reviewers, your writers for those particular subjects. And
Ken, aren't you saying then that the publisher has to assess what are the needs in the marketplace
Yes.
and then create a product to fill that
yes,
need?
very
What will the needs be in the marketplace?
yes, working ahead of time and making
Well,
the investment now for 5 years down the road. This is where the business sense comes in, the business acumen.
Yeah.
Of course, Irma, you're doing it a little differently in the sense that you know that there's always been an ongoing market and demand for mystery
No,
stories.
that's not true.
Okay.
There's been a resurgence, but there was a time, in fact, in the past 5 years when that wasn't, that didn't exist in the same way that it
Oh,
exists
so you want to
now.
tap into a vital or a
It
vibrant
happens
market.
that I am coinciding with something that has gone this way, which had gone this way.
So you could be tapping into a dormant market and fall flat
Well, it's
on.
not dormant, but I'm
No,
just
I mean,
saying that
but that's
there's
the
a
risk.
difference.
I'm trying to
Yeah.
bring out the risk. Now, Jerry, you have tapped into the ethnic market. Am I correct in
Right.
that?
And film. Those are my two specific fields of interest.
What are your titles, or specifically?
Well, my major title is the Film Review Annual, which, as the name implies, is an annual publication.
And what are some of the ethnic areas that you've tapped into?
Well, I think, self-serving as this may sound, the leading text in ethnic studies, which is not as grand as it sounds because that's a relatively small market, but it is essentially my market. Now,
Yeah,
let me use this.
Go ahead.
See, it's a market that is too small, say, for a Prentice Hall, but it's large enough for me.
Right.
And yet it's a market ethnicity is in the United States, or has been for a decade.
Yeah, I think it's now part of the career. Let me give perhaps a less self-serving example. Let's go back to my pre-independent publishing days, to a time when I worked for Pittman, and I think it's a very good example.
And Pittman was an international company.
Pittman was international with a rather broad list, and a friend of mine, who at the time was a junior high school teacher, came to me with the idea of a book on black history. No, it was that long ago. It was Negro history. And there was no large...
Very early 60s or the late 50s.
That's right. There was no large market for it, but yet I could justify it economically to my board. And we went ahead. By the time we got the book, and remember, there was, and this is, I'm referring back to what Ken was talking about, that beautiful combination that one can get in publishing of art and business. Okay, all the time I had to keep that balance sheet in mind, the marketing, but at the same time I was being a creative editor. By the time the book came out, you know what happened.
It
in the
exploded.
60s, and the thing just went way beyond our
The book
wildest.
really took off.
Okay, so we
Yeah.
looked smart.
Yeah,
but
you
I
do look
can't-
smart, Jerry,
I
because
can't
we're at the
say
end of the
that-
segment.
I can't say that we were smart, though.
Okay. Ken, Irma, Jerry, you've been a delight, the three of you. You're so verbal. I had nothing to do here. I just sat back and let you talk. You're great guests. What do they need a moderator for?
When does the program start?
The program
Now
is
that we've warmed
ended.
up.
The program is ended. Thank you for being with us. We finished the segment on publishing in the Money Corner. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you've learned about publishing. I'll have a series of guests, a new topic next week. And until then, have a good week. Good night.